I can tell I'm in Texas when I start saying y'all on day 2, so that's perfect. It's good to be here, good to be back in sunny Texas. It's so nice to not be in Vancouver this week when it's raining. So I'm from Vancouver, Canada. We don't tan up there, we rust. So today I'm talking about the better way to optimize. Now, I've been in conversion optimization for 40 years. This is me, age 4 with my sister. That was my 4th year of optimization. I remember walking to school with my sister and trying to map out the path that would minimize the number of steps to school. That's conversion optimization, right? This was one of my early tests with banana loaves. So pro tip is that it's very hard to beat peanut butter and chocolate chip in banana bread. So now I actually optimize with a team of 30 people in major brands at WiderFunnel. And you know what I've realized over the last 10 years of optimization with WiderFunnel is that there are patterns and frameworks and insights that are applicable to every single business. And I've also learned that speaking at over 300 events, that it's really fun to talk about the huge wins, right? IBM gets massive lift in their orders. Hewlett-Packard gets huge, 40% lift in their ink sales, 115% more qualified leads every day for Magento, $1 million a month more for BuildDirect.com retail. Those are exciting. And the reason I show you this, the companies we've worked with are in all industries, and so the patterns I'm going to show you today are applicable to your business, whether you're in your retail, lead gen, B2B, e-commerce, affiliate marketing, whatever it is, you can use these principles in your business, okay? What I hear over and over again are the same questions. How many of you recognize any of these things? Right? Are we going to hit an optimization ceiling? How do I make sure I get reliable results? It's not just by guessing and testing random things. There's a process that will guarantee you the best results. So I'm going to show you 2 stories, and I'm going to show you the frameworks that you can apply. But more importantly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on a lot of the tactical things. You've heard a lot of tactics. You've heard about user testing. You've heard about statistics. You've heard about personalization, right? You've heard about button color. But those things only matter if they sit within a context that's strategic and applies to your business. And I'm going to show you now the mindset of the best optimization champions in the world and how you can adopt those and actually bake them into a process in your organization. Would you like those kind of results in your company, first of all? Okay. So here's an example, a company called DMV.org. This is a brilliant company. They're a publishing company. They have thousands and thousands of pages of content just about the DMV. They're making tons of money just by clarifying how the DMV works. I mean, that's awesome, right? So if you search for anything, car registration in California, you get their content, you click on it, and you land on a page of content. Now, they make money when you click on this affiliate banner, right? So it's a content about car registration in California, and then they sell you car insurance. So you go to their second page, car insurance, then you go to the car insurance providers page, right? How many of you have used DMV.org? You've probably come across it at some point. Yeah. So the situation, you may recognize some of these things. We started working with them. They had a high-volume website, one-person optimization team, right? They had all different kinds of technology that they were trying to measure their results with. Ad server technology they were doing testing on. They had Optimizely, they had Adobe, and they were getting different results from different tools. They were using a hunt and peck optimization planning process, right? He said he didn't really understand what their potential was from optimization because they were really just making gut feeling-based tests. They were doing tests, around 4 to 8 tests per month, but they didn't really know how to be confident in their results because the technology was all a mishmash. You recognize any of these things in your company? Okay, so what they really needed was a growth marketing program that gave them reliable results and insights about their customers. We call those profitable aha moments. The problem is in most organizations, there's conflict within marketing. If you're in a larger organization, how many of you, show of hands, are in a company with more than 100 people? Wow, quite a few of you. Okay, so you probably recognize that there's 2 departments, right? There's the brand marketer, who is a genius, blessed with God, with the understanding of their customer, right? They know. They have inspiration, and they know what the customer wants. They understand the brand, and if you try to put Comic Sans on your page, my God, you better duck, right? And then the other side, there's the data analysts, the propeller heads. They know what the customer wants because they have access to the data. They know the truth, right? They have the Bible. And these two are in conflict constantly. It might, in your organization, be different. They might be under different names. It might be the organic and the paid marketer, right? It could be brand and analytics. It could be your CEO and you. But in reality, the best marketing optimization champions, the best experts, know how to combine both of these mindsets because in reality, they're both important. Neither of them are right, and both of them are right. Optimization champions are what I call Zen marketing masters. They understand the balance of marketing, that there's an inspirational side and a rigorous side. I've been talking a lot in the last few years about Zen marketing because I believe it is the secret to getting the best results. Understanding that there's an intuitive side, there's a qualitative side, there's a fuzzy side, an inspirational side, a big idea side to marketing that's really important. Understanding why you're doing what you're doing is critical to getting inspirational, great insights. But then there's also the rigorous side. You have to prove what works. You have to test whether it works in your context and not just take the so-called best practices at face value. You've got to test and rigorously validate what works. So optimization champions are Zen marketing masters, but there's actually a way that you can create this mindset in your organization, and that's something that we've been trying to crack this nut on for the last 10 years at WiderFunnel. And we've been working on optimizing the process of optimization. I'm going to show you the latest version now and show you an example of how it works. And you can take some of these principles, take and leave what you want, but what's important is to understand that to have the best marketing optimization, growth marketing process, you need to have these principles in mind. So the process that we've developed is called the infinity optimization process. But essentially, the takeaways are that the design of this is there to communicate the concepts. There's an explore side and a validate side, and they're separated for a reason. They're separated into the infinity optimization shape because, of course, it's a never-ending process. But explore is a different mindset than validate. In an explore mindset, it's a messy process of looking at all of your data, your qualitative data, your user testing, your voice of customer, right? Your surveys, your web analytics, and trying to piece together a picture of who your customer is, and then looking through a framework to understand their mindset. You'll generate insights from this explore phase, but you can't self-criticize at this stage because this is about looking for insights in the ether. But then the other side is also important, the validate side. Once you've got insights from explore and inspiration, you need to validate through a rigorous process that's step by step. Whereas you'll see in explore, it all takes all this data through one filter. In validate, this process has to be run in the right order or you'll fail. This is a rigorous process that has no variation. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of explore and validate. In explore, this is one tool that a lot of you are familiar with, eye tracking studies. But what's important, there's a lot of these tools that people use, and a lot of them people have sort of abandoned because they don't know how to use them properly. Eye tracking can be just a load of garbage if it's not done properly. But if done properly, you can get insights from it. So in this example, one of our clients, 1-800-Flowers, you can see the eye tracking. It just looks like a bunch of dots and lines. But what's important to see is that the eye flow that's been created by the design is leading the viewer through the right side of the page. But most of the revenue is driven from these left side banners, these tiles. So that leads to a potential hypothesis for testing, for recreating the page to make a more revenue positive experience. In another example, this is an eye tracking heat map. And some people just use these as eye candy, right? Because CEOs love this stuff. Oh, that's really cool. You can see where your people are looking. That's awesome. But it's important here because this is showing a different pattern where most people are looking down the left and reading the content, but most of their revenue is driven from the right rail. So that gives a potential insight. And if we hadn't used that, we'd never really see that from your Google Analytics. You wouldn't see that from a user test or from asking your customers what they like about the page. You can only see that from this type of a study. And there's a whole bunch of different tools you can use. There's piles of tools. I'm not here to talk about tools, but what's important is to look at all of the different data you can collect through the filter of your customer's mindset to try to understand them. And I'll explain to you a little bit about this framework. There are a whole bunch of frameworks. Everyone's got a different one. The lift model is one of the originals that we developed years ago. It's become one of the most popular conversion optimization frameworks, and I'll show you how it works for those of you who haven't seen it. How many of you have seen the lift model before? Okay, cool. So some of you that haven't, essentially it shows the 6 conversion factors that are impacting your conversion rate right now. The core of it is the value proposition. You probably have your own definition of value proposition. I like to think of it as an equation that goes on in your prospect's mind between the perceived costs of taking action and the perceived benefits. If the benefits outweigh the costs, they'll have motivation to act. You can test within value proposition, and then the other factors will enhance or detract from the value proposition. So the relevance of the value proposition, the relevance of the experience they have includes relevance to the source media, relevance to their needs right now, relevance to the external environment and the seasonality. Clarity of the presentation includes clarity of the eye flow that we saw a moment ago, clarity of the imagery and the call to action, the layout and the copywriting, the content, which includes the clarity of the communication of the value proposition. And then factors that detract are anxiety, anything that creates uncertainty in their mind about taking action, and distraction, anything that redirects their attention from the primary message or the primary call to action. And then finally, urgency. So you can test within each of these factors to find out where there's sensitivity in your experience to improve your conversion rate and where there are questions in their mind. Because testing is all about understanding your customer's mind. So I'll show you an example of how this works. A very simple example. So this is the second step in that DMV.org flow, right? They click on the banner, they end up on this page of providers, and then they choose the providers. How do you find out what to test on this page? Now, you can just randomly throw a bunch of ideas on there. You can try to hope that a machine will come up with a top variations. Or you can understand by collecting customer data, and in practice, we sit around with our strategists and do a bunch of work looking at all the Explorer data, identifying potential problems, and then prioritizing which ones to test first. So in this example, these are some of the very simple ones. We had the first step in the banner said compare insurance rates in 3 easy steps. This was repeating the previous step, wasn't adding any more value. Too many colors creates distraction. A gradient background, you can't really see that on here, but there's a gradient background. A lot of times, you ask a designer to create prominence in an area, they'll actually do the opposite by adding a bunch of graphics, which creates cognitive load and actually reduces your visitor's ability to understand the message. Get the designers out of the way sometimes. You can have better results. 3-column layout. There's too much content for a simple action, creating probably some anxiety. Unable to select multiple providers at once. It's low button prominence. So a whole bunch of things, right? Dozens of things that you might identify as potential when you're thinking from your customer's perspective and not just from your perspective as a business. So once you've got all this inspiration here in Explore and you've looked at it through their mental filter, you've got insights. Now, the central core of this is where the growth and insights happen, right? It's the orange orb where the power is released. And those insights now you have to translate into dollars by validating. So this is where it's fun. I'm going to test your conversion skills a bit here. I love doing this. Every audience, it's so fun. So this was one of the, after we'd optimized quite a bit, we'd already removed the buttons because we found out they didn't work. We'd found a new button that worked better. And so we wanted to really drill into some insights about the customer's mindset. One variation, we added a subhead that said get rate in less than 15 minutes, so it was an urgency subhead. Another one, we said the one you choose is up to you, which is a choice isolation, right? So all of these were isolated against the control. Variation C was a lovability isolation, which I like because it was my idea. Taking that headline and putting it with a little cute little dog. So which one do you think won? How many, first of all, think variation A had the highest revenue? A couple votes for A. Who's going for B? The one you choose is up to you. Who's going for the cute? Who has decided not to vote? I can see you, like you're right there. I can see you're not voting. Okay, so let's see what happened. When we actually tested it, we found that the choice isolation actually increased their revenue by 19%. Get rates in less than 15 minutes was a killer. 10% reduced, and mine lost, so that sucked. But that's okay. We tested a bunch of other ones that worked with some really cute images. So what was interesting about this is we didn't just, like these weren't just random words that were put on the page. They were there for a reason. This is what we call a profitable aha moment. It generates profit, 19% revenue lift. It also generates an insight about their customer. So I'm going to show you where that insight came from. Do you want to know? It's a psychological trigger. There's a cognitive bias that you can use in your marketing. And the process generates an unending stream of them if you do your research and understand persuasion principles. This one is called the choice is yours effect. It came from a study, a meta-analysis by Chris Carpenter at the University of Western Illinois. And he did an analysis of 42 studies involving salespeople's scripts. And what he found is that over 22,000 participants participating in sales pitches, the salespeople who used the words, the choice is up to you, or the one you choose is up to you, or it's up to you which one you choose, any combination of those words, were twice as likely to close the deal. So we're thinking, you know, that's really interesting. That works in a sales pitch. I wonder if it works on a landing page. So we tried it here, and that's where that insight came from. 19% lift in revenue. You could try that on your page. It might not work for you because it might not apply to your context. But the reason that it worked is because in this context, the DMV.org might not have credibility. This disarming phrase reduced anxiety. It actually added no value. Think about it. You're saying to them, the one you choose is up to you. Well, of course the one I choose is up to me. I have the mouse in my hand, right? But just saying that reduced anxiety and got them further in the process. What's important is you don't understand how your customers perceive your message and your brand. Each of your customers has their own perceptual filter that lies between the information that you communicate and how they perceive the information. The reason you test and the reason you do exploration, the reason you do voice of customer studies is to try to get into their head and understand their perceptual filters. Testing is a critical part of that, of course, and that's why you're all here, you understand that. But more than just testing, the design of experiments is a critical component of the validate process that most people are skipping. Design of experiments is not about graphic design. Design of experiments is how you structure your tests to maximize both growth and insights. If your design of experiments sucks, your results suck. You might be getting wins, but if you don't ask why in how you create your design, you'll learn nothing. You're a monkey tester. So you need to have both. You need to have growth and you need to have insights. Going back to the first step in the process, compare car insurance rates in 3 steps, what we'd realized is that there was an opportunity here. People had searched for car registration. So getting into their mindset, they were looking for car registration, and we were redirecting them to car insurance, right? So it's a bit of a lateral move. What we found is that we could add a little segue. Oh, registering a car? It's a good time to check for car insurance rates. Oh yeah, you're right, that's logical, click. It works. 7.34% revenue lift just by adding that in there. Why? Why? That's the right question to ask. Because it created relevance. This is how personalization works. Personalization is just a tactic that improves relevance. It's a buzzword right now, and it's important, but don't oversell it. It's a tactic to improve relevance. So here's another test to follow up with that. Are you registering a car? It's a good time to check car. So that one we knew won. We'd been testing it a bunch of times, and it was a winner. Now we wanted to increase relevance even more with a micro-survey. Whether you're married or not can make a 37% difference in your car insurance rates. Are you married? Yes or no. Enter your zip code. The next one, based on your criteria, you may qualify for lower car insurance rates. We've seen this win before. Find out if you qualify. This is a free tip. Find out if you qualify was one of the best buttons that we couldn't beat for a particular SaaS product. Another one, social proof focus. Join 1,972,984 Americans who search DMV.org. So, who's going with A, micro survey? Come on, work with me here, guys. B, and the social proof fans. C, all right. How many of you are still chickens? Uh-huh. Okay, what works? So if you voted for social proof, give yourself a raise. That's a 40% lift in revenue across their site. Now, everyone knows social proof works, right? Social proof, it's called the bandwagon effect in psychology, because we we believe what other people are doing. And a lot of you are writing this down if you haven't seen this before. I can see you. Social proof. Try that. See, what I just did is use social proof, telling you that it's important by showing that all these people are writing it down, right? Now you believe it even more. So the bandwagon effect works, but is the bandwagon effect the right thing to use in your marketing? It's one of over 175 cognitive biases that we know of already. So is this the right one that you should use? You can't use all of them, right? You end up with the infinite landing page. Nobody likes this experience. So what do you use? You've got to use your brain, first of all, to understand what are powerful questions to ask. So we had another idea. Down here is another one, the self-consistency bias. This test will blow your socks off. I've never presented this publicly before. We just got the results back from this. And it's pretty cool. We did a test just a few weeks ago with Heifer International. And I'm going down and speaking at another conference with them to present some of the insights from this. And what we wanted to do was increase the average value of donors arriving on this page, right? They do great work with international disaster relief, and they're really struggling right now because what they've found is that the social climate in the US has changed so that it's very inward focused right now. Everyone, like Americans, are more and more trying to donate to local organizations and support Americans, and what they do is support global problems. So they're really struggling against sort of a lot of things, and conversion optimization has become really important to them. So what we did is we wanted to understand how the self-consistency bias could be used to encourage people to do the right thing. So Cialdini talked about this in 2006, but it's not a new concept. It's very closely related to the idea of cognitive dissonance, which was first discussed in 1957, which is the idea that we try to do things that make us consistent with our beliefs about ourselves. Because if we don't, then we have this very painful mental effect called cognitive dissonance. When we're caught in a lie, this is what happens in our brains, and we struggle to reconcile what's happening. So what we did is our strategist who came up with this got a promotion. So we had the test, or the page, and we added a barrier. So after a few seconds of seeing the page, they got a light box that said, please help us. So it's a standard survey, right? Please help us understand you. Are you a regular donor, an occasional donor, or a first-time donor? Press continue. You'll notice that there's no option for I don't donate. So what we were doing was creating self-consistency bias. We ran the test and found conversion rate increased by 1.97%. Now, we had changed nothing on the page except for this survey. Average donations increased by 3%. Total revenue per visitor increased by 5.1%. What's happening here? Right? People had self-identified as donors. Now what are they going to do? Not donate? No, of course they're going to donate. What's cool is that now we could look at the segments of the people who selected one of the options. 14% of the visitors actually selected. The rest of them, 86%, just closed the window. Of those who selected it, they were 68% of the donors. Those who closed it were 32% of the donors. And what's really cool is now we can start building on that seed of information about the customers to create a personalization strategy to understand how do we create messaging throughout the experience for each of those segments that maximizes donations. Okay, so now we've looked at a bunch of process, the mindset you have to take and the approach. I'm going to answer one more question that every optimizer in here is going to love, okay? Do the results fade over time? Because this is going to prove to you why you need to go back to your organization and get funding for your optimization program. Because it works. We ran a program, and we've never seen this done before. I talked to one of the co-founders of Optimizely, and he said this is the gold standard for proving that optimization works. So we ran this test, series of tests for one of our clients. So this is over 6 months, and you can see the conversion rate lift in each of the months. So month 1, we were just getting started. Month 2, we got an early 18.8% lift. Month 4, another 11%. Month 5 and 6 were a little painful. If you're in optimization, having 2 months without results, it can lead to some awkward conversations. But fortunately, we knew that because of the way the experiments were designed, we were gaining insights through that time period to lead to future results. But after 6 months, they had accumulated calculated conversion rate lift of 32.8%. That's not bad. That was to revenue, actually. So what we did is we had a brilliant client who luckily trusted us enough to allow us to do an A/B test, an AABB test actually, from the beginning of the engagement to the last winner. And we validated by testing the latest one against the original that they actually got a 36.8% revenue lift, which coincided with the calculated lift. So we didn't stop there. We actually went another 6 months. So at the end of 12 months, we'd seen all of the conversion rate lift month by month. We had another 3-month gap there, which is interesting. But then, look at this. All those insights led to a 19% revenue lift and then a 13% revenue lift. That happens, right? If your tests are structured properly, it's okay. At this point, they understand how it works. It's a process. You trust the process because in the end, it gets results. So they had a calculated revenue lift of 100.8% after 12 months. Then we got a little bit nervous because we took the winner after 12 months back to the original after the month 1, did another AABB test to validate the tool, and got 123% revenue lift. So the concept of conversion optimization, what this is answering is, do the results fade over time? No, they don't. See, if they had only had their original page, they would have 123% lower revenue on a monthly basis. They didn't stop there. This is the end of 24 months. Calculated 259% revenue lift, and then a validated AABB result of 282% revenue lift. So you can take this, because we're always getting the question, that's why we wanted to validate it, like, will this show up in the bank? Do test results actually apply to real results? And I'm here to tell you that we've validated it many times, and it does, okay? This is not smoke and mirrors. Conversion optimization is the right industry to be in. So that's good for all of us. So where they are now, this is what's in this particular story. They've got the right technology. We integrated Adobe and Optimizely and our tool for planning tests called LiftMap. We integrated that to have one story. Using the optimization process we talked about, integrating the teams. We're now running over 500 tests per year, and 4 years in a row now, revenue doubling every year. And this is Shane. He's actually down here in, well, not here. He's in San Diego, sort of lateral to here. What he said is that senior level buy-in was critical to success. So if you want tips for how to get an organizational growth program going like this, that's really important. He said, you got to track the right revenue goals, and we heard that from Jared Spool yesterday, right? It's important to understand if you're tracking the right things so you know you're optimizing in the right direction. Trust the process. Don't be afraid of the left field variations, right? It's just a test. If you want to test Comic Sans, fine. That's all I'll say about that. Analyze results for personalization insights. Look at your segments. And if you want more, there's, of course, as any good optimizer, I have a CTA. So actually, we just published a 32-page guide, an Optimization Champion's Handbook. So just send an email to iwant@widerfunnel.com with the subject, Champion Handbook, please, and we'll get that to you. So I think we have 1.28 minutes for questions, if there are questions.
There are quite a few, so let's,
Woo! All right, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Cheers, bud.
Yeah, there's a bunch of questions, so I think we should go through them. Okay, first one. How do you feel about PEP's assessment that, okay, a little bit of broken English here, that increasing motivation is more valuable than decreasing friction?
Well, it depends on the context, and Pep and I have an agreement that we're going to do a kickboxing spar a little bit later, so we'll be able to really validate with some real data. So increasing motivation is all about aligning value proposition with your customer's needs. That's about creating motivation, right? Value proposition is matching that to their needs. That's critical. That has to happen, or else friction doesn't matter if they don't have any motivation. So I agree that motivation is the first thing. If it's there, then friction is more important because motivation is already there. So that's my perspective.
Yep. How do you validate that the 282.2% growth is due to the test you were running and not other factors, other changes on the site, market factors, etc.?
Right, exactly. And that's maybe what I didn't communicate, is that we eliminated the market factors because we weren't just looking at before and after results. This was not an analytics test where we were looking at our data 2 years ago. We took the variations and the whole test funnel from 2 years ago, re-implemented it as an AABB test. So we've duplicated it in 2 controls and then 2 Bs with the new total funnel to validate through a controlled test what works. So market factors were eliminated. It was a true controlled test 3 times.
The next question here is from Jakob. We're going to see him on stage later. When and how do you break out of the infinity optimization loop in a healthy way, assuming you've done everything you could?
Well, as soon as we know how to break out of infinity, I will let you know. Infinity is never ending. And the question really here, I think, is when are you done testing? And my answer to that is when you're out of business questions. If you have no more questions, stop testing. Hopefully that doesn't happen, because that means you've lost all creativity.
Let's do one more. The self-consistency test, did you find a difference in conversion lift between people who self-identified as donors and those who did not respond?
I don't know if you checked that. I was just wondering.
Did you find a difference in conversion lift?
I
I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's a good question. I'll check that out.
Okay.
I would assume so, because that's the whole hypothesis. Yeah.
Awesome. Those were the questions for now.
All right.
Thank you again,
Thank
Chris.
you.